All right, this is going to be a whole thing. Let me just start right now by saying, not a performer, but I have a script. And what I'm going to talk about tonight in so many words, and whew, it's gonna be like 75% thought experiment, 25% off the rails rant. Um, can filmmakers work without the studios? Because obviously the WGA and SAG-AFTRA, so the writers and the actors, are striking against the AMPTP, which is the studios, the money people, the banks, the people that, you know, in the cliche that is being a filmmaker or being a director at least, you got to go to the money people for them to go, okay, we think we can make money off of you by giving you money, and the process starts. Given the fact that the AMPTP doesn't want to work with people right now because I don't know, greed and lack of interacting with humans, I guess. Is there a way to work as a filmmaker without having to deal with those kind of people? I would. It's a fantasy of mine, honestly. The reason in my opinion, or me asking around in preparation of this, why that hasn't really been a thing where you always have to, in the hundred and something years that filmmaking has happened, you've always had to go to the studios to ask for money because filmmaking is expensive. It is. Um, yeah, there's an argument to be made. You can make your film on your phone now, sure, but that film's not going to go to theaters just by itself. You can point to the three films or the two films that were made on an iPhone that went to theaters. So, because every other aspect of filmmaking is so much more expensive than the equipment. Yeah. So, excuse me, I got the hiccups. Can filmmakers really work outside the studio system? That's my question. That's my thesis. This is the science experiment that's in front of us today. Can it be done? Now, the studio system traditionally has been working outside of it has been in any film, Sundance darling, a Cannes darling. You're weird and you're making small films for a very refined audience, and sometimes they go to movie theaters after they have a great festival run and they find distribution after that. That's what working outside of the studio system traditionally has been referred to. Considering the studios don't wanna hang right now, anything that is getting made by definition is outside of the studio system. Um, Even the stuff I guess there's a little asterisk for anybody that really pays attention. A bunch of projects have been co-signed by the WGA and SAG-AFTRA because they've signed an agreement to meet the demands of the WGA SAG-AFTRA. So those movies are being made right now, but that's the tiny, tiny proportion of all the movies that should be made right now. Anyway, I'm off the rails. Studios, what are they? They're the money. They're the money. You go to your filmmaker, you go to the studios and say, I need this much money to make my project, and they say, well, we think we can make this much more money if we give you this much money, so go make your movie. Here's a bunch of money because filmmaking is expensive. And you go make your movie, and there's never enough money, but it is what it is. Studios are also the infrastructure, and this was a lot more relevant in the pre-1950s when the breakup of the studios happened because of antitrust laws. But yes, you go to the studios not just for money, but for production space, studio space, literally sound stages, equipment, connections to people. The other one is distribution, which again, pre-1950s was the studios, which again, it's come around now. Even though, Warner Brothers and all these companies, distribution is still movie theaters, which are their own companies now, post 1950s breaking up of the stuff in the 1950s. Pre 1950s, studios owned the production. They had exclusive contracts with actors, so actors couldn't work on other studio stuff. And then they had their own movie theaters, and so they had a closed system. The monopoly, the antitrust, the American laws broke that up, and the movie theaters got sold off to private companies, or different companies technically, but different. And then actors could work wherever they want. They didn't have exclusive contracts. We've come full circle. I'm not convinced any American laws are going to change anything anytime soon, but you have Amazon, you have Netflix, you have these streaming only platforms now that make their own in-house stuff. You could argue maybe they're holding on to their actors, but for the sake of what we're doing, let's say they're not. And then they only put their stuff up on their streaming channel, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, etc. Kind of mirrors the 1950s. We're not in a situation politically where I think anything is going to change about that, if I'm being completely honest. But not a fan of monopolies and artificially controlling stuff. I like the idea that, anybody can work and be wherever they want. So anyway, this is neither here nor there. Distribution. Studios handle the distribution. And in the case of traditional studios, that means they have a distribution network. They have, companies that will sell to theaters, that will put stuff in movie theaters. In the case of Netflix and Amazon, etc., that means they're going to put it up on their website. That's really what it means. So I said ignoring the 1950s breakups of the studio system. The big thing. Studios are the banks, both literally and metaphorically. You got to go to them because movies are expensive. And on top of that, they tend to have a lot of money because they're in the business of making movies, which requires a lot of money. Time, money, resources. It's like building a skyscraper in any major city. There's a level of bureaucracy to it, but it's mostly just you got to coordinate all these people showing up on set and then getting it shot, getting it made, which is extremely expensive. And then everything goes away at the end of the movie or the end of the show season, So anyway, making movies costs money. That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get through this stuff so I can actually talk about the what if of it all. But yeah, moving on. What these filmmakers right now have going for them, the ones that are WGA, SAG-AFTRA, anybody that the studios would not look at. So I wouldn't even put just the union people in this category. Anybody that AMPTP, anybody that the studios AMPTP would not look at. So even me, I'm not in any unions, but I'm also not having my door knocked down by studios telling me that they want me to make their next movie. Could be because I keep word salading stuff, but I think it's just I'm not there looking for. So anybody that's not working with them, I've considered the not them of it all, the working outside of the studio system. So yeah, by definition, most movies right now, at least in the English language, are working outside of the studio system because the studio system has pretty much halted as the beef happens, as the strikes are happening. So anyway, there's also a little asterisk there in that a bunch of indie films have been approved temporarily because they've signed a document saying that they're going to meet all the requirements that the two striking unions want, and that's great. So those movies are getting made, but they're very much in the minority. Moving on. Filmmakers. Making movies is hard. It is. Anybody who tells you it's easy either hasn't done it or they haven't done it. It's as simple as that. Making movies is incredibly hard. It's incredibly resource intensive. It's incredibly expensive, and it will melt your brain. It just will, because it's not like regular jobs. I know every job is not like regular jobs, but it's not. It's just different. There are other much harder, much more labor intensive, much more mentally exhausting jobs. But filmmaking is one of those really, really hard jobs. And the difference is if you're a doctor or a nurse in a hospital, you have education, you have sort of a framework to get to there. With filmmaking, you just have to start doing it and then keep doing it. So there's no real, proper way to become a filmmaker, I guess. That's its own conversation, obviously, but moving on. Filmmakers are really comfortable with the idea of the squeeze. This is a term I've coined, or a term I'm trying to coin, because if there's one thing we know about me, it's that I'm cool, obviously. The squeeze has always been a thing. The squeeze is budgets, indie film budgets. You go to an indie, you go to Sundance and you win Sundance's something award, and they give you this much money, and they go, here's $10,000 to make your movie. And you're like, great, because I planned this movie for $1 million. So I'm 1/100th of the way there now. Cool. But even in a more practical sense, the director, super hot director, goes to an indie studio, or even a studio for the sake of argument, and says, hey, I have a $10 million movie. I want to make this movie here. Can you get me $10 million? And the studio says, you betcha. Here's $2 million. Go make your $10 million movie. Now, the logical people among you would realize that there's an $8 million deficit there, and then maybe somehow there is a way to find an additional $8 million somewhere else. I believe it's possible. No, I don't. Not really. Basically, you're making a $10 million movie for $2 million, maybe $3 if you have a lot of other people connected that can add $1 million. But That's the squeeze. The squeeze is you got to save money everywhere. If the prop lamp costs $50, that prop lamp better cost $4 by the time it gets to set. That's just how it is. In the film school version, it's Subway sandwiches instead of catering. I have half of my YouTube channel is about the fact that you should pay people through their stomachs, whether or not you're paying them. And so if I show up on a set with Subway sandwiches again, yeah, I better like you a lot. So anyway, always trying to save money. Yeah. The chaotic lifestyle of most filmmakers. If you're a director, that may mean half your life is spent on the couch waiting for the phone call. Hopefully you're doing something else. Hopefully you're doing something filmmaking related, honing your skills, working on screenplays or something. But, you know, I would argue a lot of times some of the least experienced people on set, other than just the PAs that are starting out their careers, tend to be the high creatives, the directors, the writers, because everybody else, the crew, the camera team, the makeup department, the set designers, all those people, they're working constantly. They're project agnostic. A project comes up, they do it. The project ends, they go to the next project. The creative people have to woo the studios, in most cases, to get them on. And so they tend to have the least amount of set experience. That's a whole rant for another day about why I think that's a broken system in itself, and that creative people should probably have at least as much experience as somebody really high ranking on set, like, I don't know, somebody in the camera team, like the director of photography, for instance. Anyway, chaotic lifestyle. And if you're one of those crew people, if you're a working like music video director or music video director of photography, you might be in a different zip code every 6 hours. It's just there's chaos there. It's not a 9 to 5 job. I'm not saying it's harder than working in an oil well, an oil rig. One of those two phrases is correct, but it's, yeah, you know, it benefits you to be a single person with a lot of energy who has a pretty good grasp on, you know, eating right and not dying of heart disease, to work in the film industry, because everything is going to be a nightmare, and you're going to be doing flights and drives in the middle of the night all the time, and hopefully you don't crash your car. So also the idea of breaking in is incredibly hard, and the only people who really don't view the breaking in being hard are rich kids and connected kids. Chip on my shoulder much? Yes. Moving on. Certain aspects of production are getting cheaper. Make your movie on your phone. Yes, that's true. So you just saved a whole camera package. You know, in theory, for a feature film, you saved $20,000 of a camera package by making it on your phone. Sure. Everything else still costs the same. If you want to light it, that costs money. If you want to bring actors in, they cost money. If you want to bring crew in, they cost money. If you want locations, they cost money. So in the smallest of ways, and the people, especially the indie film people who are saying make your movie on your phone, they're right. But when it gets down to it, even giant blockbusters, which have these massive cameras, usually the camera represents like 10% to 1% of the budget. So that's not the expense of a camera, the expensive equipment is only expensive to people who don't have money. So the idea that you're saving money by doing it on your iPhone, you're already having to go through the mental fallacy of everything costs nothing, which when you're making movies that need to go into theaters or need to go onto, Netflix, everything else costs so much more money than the equipment. It just does. Anyway, food costs, set costs money. Time is the most expensive thing that costs everything, because the thing about movies, the thing about television is everything needs to be coordinated so you can get it all on set at the same time to capture it, in the frame with the camera, to make your day, to make your movie, to make your TV show, to get it out there somehow. And so with the exception of post-production, which is its own beast, the thing that's so expensive is time, because you got to have all these specialties, all this equipment, all these resources show up at the same time and get it right. And every second that it's not, rolling camera, actors getting dialogue recorded, visual effects being planned out for post is time wasted, therefore money wasted. So that's why filmmaking is so expensive. Is because have I done the building a skyscraper in any city bureaucracy joke yet? It's kind of like launching a restaurant, except instead of launching a restaurant and then making your money back by people showing up to your restaurant in the days, weeks, months after you've launched it, you just got the launch. And so everybody should like your spaghetti bolognese on that first night, because you're not gonna have a restaurant next week. So, have I mixed the metaphors properly yet? All right. Having said all that, it got 15 minutes. Felt like a million minutes. Having said all that, let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's talk about how to beat studios. How can filmmakers, how can creative people, how can people with the drive, the blah, 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 the gumption, the screw you to the rich people who think that what is the cost of a banana, $12? Those people, how do we do that? Funding. Let's talk about funding first. We're going to talk about funding. We're going to talk about distribution. Then we're going to talk about the whole enchilada, because I think the whole enchilada is most importantly what we're up against because of the Netflix and the Amazon of it all, the whole enchilada of it all. But let's talk about funding, getting a movie made. Find a rich person who wants to make a movie. I don't know how to do that. And even if I did, I don't know what I would say to them to convince them that this guy would be the movie maker. I just don't know. I'm open to suggestions. I've definitely worked on projects where there was an angel investor involved and we didn't get a blank check, but we got a budget and we went out and shot their stuff. And boy, it was awesome. But how many rich people are interested in basically, isn't the cliche, how do you make $100 million in Hollywood? Well, you make a movie by spending $1 billion and then you can make $100 million. I ruined that one too. Yeah, you get what I'm saying though. It's crazy. People that invest in movies as an investment thing, like you would with like investing as like a shady landlord or, like property in general, it's not the same when you're making movies, because the chances of the movies doing badly, pretty high. When they do well, they do astonishing. But even giant studios, it's not a coincidence that most things that go into theaters now made by the studios are the biggest movies of all time over and over again, because they figured out, for them, the economics, even though I fundamentally disagree with all of their logic, because this has not been the case until the last 10 years, but for their economics, they think if you pay for the most expensive movie and you only do like a couple of those in theaters a year versus, 150 movies in your catalog, and some of them might hit, but if you pay for just a few and you put them in the theaters, as long as they do well, we can keep soldiering on. Obviously, I don't believe with that. That's not hidden there. Rich person, find a rich person. They will fund your movie. If you got any rich people, let me know. Crowdfunding. I'm going to take a drink. Oh, that's good tea. Crowdfunding. Yeah. It's a cliche for a reason. If you're around anybody that has to do with film and TV, you've been sent crowdfunding stuff. I won't go into my relationship with crowdfunding because I don't think that's healthy for anyone. But I think of crowdfunding as sort of like MLMs. So you have two kinds of crowdfunding. You have crowdfunding because people want this thing. There's some social thing that's happening that people are willing to pay for because they see the social value in it. That's one kind of crowdfunding. And then there's crowdfunding everything else. And the problem with this crowdfunding everything else, because these people, it's a donation, it's a charity, it's for the greater good, therefore it has intrinsic value that's not necessarily connected to the cash that's being paid. The other kind of crowdfunding, at a certain point, everybody is going to be in the MLM. They're going to have touched every other person. You will have gone around the globe. You will have run out of people to ask for your crowdfunding. That's the problem I have with crowdfunding, is how many times can you annoy the top 50 or 100 people in your life before they stop talking to you? That's the question that crowdfunding seeks to answer, in my opinion. That's it. There's right times. There's times that I have to block people on Facebook. So, mute. I'm so glad they put in mute. Anyway, fan films. Again, crowdfunding fan films. Films made because there's a want of the fans. A Star Trek fan is willing to throw down $10 because they think this guy has the ability to make a fan film that there's definitely a want and a need for it. I'm talking about Star Trek specifically because there's been so many Star Trek fan films, and a lot of them have been pretty well paid for, pretty well produced. You know what you're up against there? The owner of the intellectual property. And unfortunately, in this moment, again, dare to dream, when intellectual property is free for all. But in this moment of time, if you want to make a Star Trek film, do you know who you have to talk to in order to make your Star Trek fan film? CBS. Good luck. Good luck. That's why early in my career I learned don't pitch on something that already has stuff coming out. Don't pitch another Star Trek movie because you're not going to be the one to make it. It's just as simple as that. It sucks because boy howdy, that would be fun, but yeah, that's what you're up against. Distribution. So funding's thin. Funding is basically rich person crowdfunding and then fan films if you're crazy. Let's talk about distribution because distribution is kind of more interesting. Excuse me. Shakespeare in the Park, pop-up drive-ins. I think that's a good idea. Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Hollywood, California does a summer movie series. Yeah, you could get your movie out that way. Word of mouth, the whole film festival of it all. Sure, yeah, I think that's cool. Is that a sustainable model to make movies off of? Well, the Hollywood Forever Cemetery has had movies there, I don't know, since movies. I'm not convinced it's a sustainable thing for more than about 10 staff members, but I don't know. I don't know. Another interesting idea, underground pop-up. So invite only, you got to get this QR code. It's the whole find the cool bar in Brooklyn of it all. Sure, find the bar in the back of the barbershop in Culver City. It's exclusive. Does that mean it's incredibly profitable? I don't know. I mean, I've never been to Brooklyn, so I don't know I don't know how the urban legend of the secret bar resolves itself. I don't know what that looks like. I assume if it's in the back of an ice cream parlor, the ice cream parlor is footing the bill for the liquor license. But I don't know. So it's a cool idea and it's awesome. I would love to be invited to those. If you guys have, secret experiences you want to send to me, I might show up. I'll definitely, have an anxiety attack about going. Anyway, expiring media. So this one I thought was interesting. The idea that your movie, you put it on one tape or one memory card and it's not copyable. And so you have to have the one tape in order to watch it, or an expiring link, I guess, is the not old person way of saying that. Or yeah, I even came up with this. So you make a movie, you put it on a Nintendo Switch cartridge. I think that's awesome. I think the problem is you're gonna have to watch it on a Nintendo Switch, and if you've tried that, yeah. But yeah, I think that's cool. But again, it's the whole secret bar in Brooklyn of it all. I'd like to see how that could make money, but I don't know. And if you mess with Nintendo, they're gonna find you. So don't do the Nintendo Switch idea. I specifically said Nintendo Switch because I know how Nintendo doesn't like people messing with their stuff. So Sony. Escape rooms. I wrote down escape rooms. Escape rooms are awesome. They're a unique experience. They rotate through that. You can only do an escape room of a specific kind every. It goes away after a month or two because they got to keep rotating in new stuff. Has any escape room company nailed this? Is this a way to make movies? I don't know. I wrote escape rooms. I don't really know what I meant at this point. So let's drink some more no juice. All right, so that was funding distribution. Obviously, I babbled. It didn't make a lot of sense, but to be honest, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about the whole enchilada. And by that, I mean money to make movies, the ability to make movies, playing movies somewhere. Netflix, that's a whole enchilada. Amazon Prime, that's a whole enchilada, kind of. Whole enchilada. I think the obvious one, just like financing, find a rich person. If you can find a celebrity, most movie stars, TV stars have their own production companies for this reason, to find stuff for them to make. the risk you run there is you're going to be making their movie because they're looking for a movie for them to star in and or make money off of. And so by definition, you're not in charge. Yeah, but we know they exist. We know they exist. Will Smith has Overbrook. That's the only one I can think of because it's a street. Anyway, moving on. Oh, Bad Robot, J.J. Abrams. Anyway, film festivals. Yes, film festivals, especially the higher ones like Sundance or Cannes or Toronto. I'm missing out a bunch. I'm sure people are going to get upset that I'm missing out on stuff. But some film festivals, some of their money they take or some of their money that's donated to them goes to filmmakers that they choose to make films as like a Sundance Lab or as like a con, I don't know what they would call it. But basically, they're going to give you X amount of money to go make your film because they like you and they want to be the ones to have discovered you. Yeah, sure. You know, I'm not knocking film festivals. I think we've spent a lot of time as a society around film festivals. And if you like film festivals, cool. If you don't like film festivals or have never attended and have no interest in ever attending because movie theaters have movies, I get it. I get it. You know, I get it. Anyway, let's talk about Whole Enchilada. Donations, super likes on YouTube. I don't even know what they're called anymore, but basically patrons on Patreon. What is it? It's channel whatever's. Basically donations on YouTube. So you put your movie on YouTube and you have the donation button open and people donate it because they like it. Yes, I believe that course of events works, has worked for somebody. Yes, totally sure. In the same way, a successful YouTube channel can get brand deals, can get advertising deals, that kind of stuff. Sure. Is the entire, film industry or is a chunk of the film industry going to convert to that? Again, it's the whole you've touched everybody on the planet by asking for money thing, even if you're not asking for money. I'm sure it'll work for a few people. I just don't see how it's going to work for everybody. Because I'm really thinking about the everybody of it all. The studios are everybody, so we need to somehow replace the studios with an everybody else. And I'm not convinced YouTube channel members, YouTube channel members donations are gonna foot the bill. And also that's like double dipping because you're gonna make them pay for it, and then they're probably gonna have to, if it goes to theaters or something, pay the ticket. That's another aspect of the crowdfunding that I don't like, is the double dipping of the people paying for it. So with the whole YouTube thing, do you put your film up as a live show and they donate there, or like what's the morality of putting your film up just as a YouTube film and just having the donate button open and people can just donate over time? Like, what's the morality there? Because at a certain point they're watching a rerun and they're going to donate on a rerun. I don't know. Tax funded. So taxes, city has movies and TV fund that will give local filmmakers the ability to make projects, and then when those projects get sold or distributed somewhere, the revenue coming back pays back the taxpayers in the city. I don't understand taxes, and if I'm being honest, I don't understand politics, and so I haven't come across a good example. Every time I talk to my accountant buddy, he sort of just laughs me out of the room about this kind of stuff. So it's a nice thought. Anyway, moving on. Tax rant. Yes, let's talk about tax rant. So this is the last time I talked to my accountant buddy who works in film finance about film incentives. So this is very much a thing in the U.S. for states, but it's everywhere. That like a bunch of Western European countries have film incentives, and so your film is this much money, and depending on where you go, and depending on how you file taxes, and depending on if you've satisfied all the rules, this proportion of crew needs to be from this country, or you mention you show this city or whatever, you're eligible for rebates, for tax rebates. So it's usually not a cash incentive. Usually your film has to be done, and then after your film is done, like a year later, you can file the taxes on it. and you can ask for tax forgiveness or tax rebate or no taxes in the country you worked on. So the idea that you could, if Hungary tomorrow says, hey, if you've got a $10 million film, we'll fund it. Even if that was the case, you're going to have to find a way to come up with $10+ million. Go make your film, go have your film come out, and have everything go well enough that during tax season, a year and a half after your film is out, you can go back to Hungary and go, can I have my 10 million back? And they'll honor that. Yeah, so that's tax rebates. Again, tax incentives, regional incentives are great if you're making Tom Cruise movies because it's one less, shooting in Georgia will cover him jumping out of 3 airplanes stunts. But you got to be able to recoup that money down the road. And so if you're an indie filmmaker where any dime on the ground is the dime you're going to throw into your movie, my accountant buddy would say, Matt, you're making dumb ideas again. Anyway, let's talk about Film Society subscriptions. This is one I actually believe in. This is the fantasy. I would love to participate in this. I'm sure they exist. I guess technically you have like Shudder TV as kind of the Netflix version of this, where if you're a huge fan of horror, now you can subscribe to Shudder and pay whatever it is a month, Netflix style, and they have their own in-house productions, but they also have a library of stuff. Yeah, so film societies, I think that'd be cool, like a members only club where the dues, the annual dues or the monthly dues go into actually making stuff. What a world that could be. I've written under this the roller coaster tycoon of it all, which I think means, so if you've ever played Roller Coaster Tycoon, the hardest missions were the ones where the park entrance fee was free, but the actual rides cost money. Because the only way I ever figured out how to make the Roller Coaster Tycoon games work was you make all the rides free, you put a ton of concession stands everywhere, and then the park fee just progressively gets more expensive to enter the park, but you don't charge for the rides. And so members club, an annual fee or a monthly fee, Roller Coaster Tycoon style. Is that a real economic system? I don't know. Was that an error in the game where it just became so much easier to win at Roller Coaster Tycoon by making all the rides free but making the entrance fee expensive, Disney style? I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know because I don't know economics or much. Yeah. Moving on. I like Film Society subscriptions though. I like the idea that there's a bunch of moderately well-off people that are paying an annual or a monthly fee and entrusting young filmmakers to make modestly budgeted projects that then will be presented, and the people will be like, yes, this is what I'm paying X amount of dollars a month for. These people, not only am I serving the community by giving these doofuses that think filmmaking is a career a reason to get out of bed in the morning, but actually the stuff they make is incredibly rewarding. God, what a world. Like, that would be so... I want it so bad. I just don't know how I could get it to work. Anyway, moving on. We're going to get weird. Before we do, Tubi, AVOD, advertising video on demand. Is that a way is that the way of the future? I'll tell you right now, since I downloaded Tubi a couple months ago, some of my favorite stuff that I've seen, especially movies-wise, has been on Tubi and not everything else. I don't know why. I don't know if that's going to be a thing going forward. I genuinely don't know. It looks like Tubi has their own, in-house productions that look roll cheap. Is that going to change? I mean, Netflix's stuff started out roll cheap too, but then they got too expensive and now they're back to roll cheap again. I don't know. Is Tubi a way to do it? I don't know. Let's get weird. Brand films. The one that every time I hear brand films, like branded films, this is a YouTuber thing for sure, Manscaped, blah, blah, blah. I'm not being sponsored by Manscaped at this moment, if it's not obvious. Yeah, branded stuff on YouTube and on TikTok and on, that kind of stuff is not new, but as far as putting down the amount of cheddar to actually make a TV show or movie, the one that my brain goes to is when Subway sandwiches. I meant to say that better, but I still screwed it up. Subway, in a post-Jared world, I'm pretty sure. I can't imagine Jared was part of this. They had a sitcom. They had a sitcom about a bunch of teenagers working at Subway. It was really terrible, but I liked that it existed. Oh my God, it was not good though. And it was real cheap, which I don't understand because Subway, other than the Jared Fogle of it all, is Subway. So is there a way for, Coca-Cola just to have, the Coca-Cola string of movies, the Coca-Cola string of TV shows? They wouldn't do it. They're too big and too afraid of people not drinking Coca-Cola, but I could see it happening. I think a better example than the Subway thing is Red Bull. Red Bull sponsors some crazy stuff. Red Bull Formula One team is on top of the world right now because Max Verstappen, their first driver, is godlike in that car, in that godlike car. Red Bull sponsors some crazy stuff. Sponsor air races. They have their own air racing league. Red Bull sponsors stuff. Can every company do this? No. I mean, we know Red Bull does it. Monster Energy drink is basically trying to steal from Red Bull for these ideas, but can you name another one? I can't. Another example, same category, Ken Block, R.I.P., and Travis Pastrana in the Gymkhana stuff. They make those car control wild drifting movies. Would I like for those people, R.I.P. Ken Block, to make a sitcom? I would. Do I think they would even consider it? Not at this time, no. Yes, I think there's a way for, some scrappy brands in the fashion of Red Bull's scrappiness to make TV. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the equivalent of getting up on the top podium after the Formula One race and pretending to drink a Red Bull. I'm okay with that if that means my TV show gets made. I'm okay with that. Moving on. The film commune. Film farm? Film commune? What sounds grosser? Let's be honest. Commune puts me into a weird midsummer kind of headspace, and so I don't think that's a good idea. Film farm just feels sad and white. Very white. Is there a way to make the film farm a thing? I mean, if they're making movies and growing corn, I can't, unless the movies are all about cornfields, which I guess Aliens and Monsters and Cornfields is the thing. But is that evergreen? Evergreen is the idea that you could keep doing this premise and it would still work every time. Basically, every TV show needs to be evergreen in some way. Is a film farm evergreen? I don't know. Chemical lab, film chemical lab team. Not chemicals like poisoning the fish in the ocean, but like there's only a couple places now that will do the finishing process, the lab finishing process for celluloid motion picture film. The stuff that Tarantino and Chris Nolan prefer, the non-digital stuff. Those chemical labs are all gone. So is there a way to have like a hippie chemical lab that Chris Nolan uses to get his new whatever IMAX? That's not a good example. Those films are too expensive to do that. Tarantino. Is there a film farm situation where Tarantino would go to these local hippies in, let's be honest, Northern California, and go, "Hey, my new last movie number 10. Here's all the reels. You guys do it, and the profits of you guys doing it, you can make your own movie off of." As I say it out loud, I think it's a dumber idea the more I think about it. It's basically just like a worse version of in-house production companies for camera rental stores. Yeah, nobody's perfect. You're not going to hit 1,000. Traveling circus. I mean, bicycle energy power. Well, here's my dystopia. The original idea was how to solve the homeless problem. Turn all the Starbuckses into just 24-hour fitnesses, but only bicycles, and have all those bicycles hooked up to the power grid, and they get they get a meal card or a sandwich based on how much cycling they've done. Um, Film commune, bicycle energy power. Yeah. Well, if the teen YA dystopia genre wasn't dead, I think I have my pitch. Um, here's the last film commune idea. You can see the energy running from my face because I'm just realizing that what I thought was an okay idea is like a catastrophic idea. Film commune, hemp bracelets. Is there a way to? I went to school in Boulder, Colorado, so every hippie would sit on the side of sit outside the grocery store with their backpack and try to sell you hemp bracelets for like $4 a bracelet. To do what with? For the money or the hemp bracelet? I honestly don't know. Is there a way to make a film society out of that? That's the crowdfunding of it all. We promise you a DVD. I don't know. I don't know. No to the hemp bracelets. Uh, College production companies. New topic. College production companies. Is the way to save film is the way to work outside of studios. A thing I haven't mentioned recently in this video. Is the solution have college production companies the way like Stanford has scientific communities that they have a Stanford robotics team that's a thing. I can't think of any other examples, but I'm sure MIT has their physics whatever, they have their nuclear plant or whatever. I don't know. Is there a way for like, I mean, let's be honest, USC, the biggest film department in the world, their in-house production company, I'm pretty sure they have one. At my film school, they did. The problem was the getting the funding was dubious at best, and I went to a private school, so funding was pretty easy and still incredibly dubious and basically impossible. And also, they're not going to fund me. Um, I don't know. At least anecdotally, the way my film school's low in-house production company worked, it didn't work at all. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a jerk. Uh, is there? Yeah. Is it? Can USC do the Stanford robotics for film? Um, I TBD. Also, who's getting into USC? Not this guy. Uh, that was the whole enchilada. So we had celebrity production companies, film festivals, donations on YouTube, tax funded, film society subscriptions, which I think is an actually like great idea. I just don't see how that could work. But again, roller coaster tycoon economics, Tubi, brand films like Subway or Red Bull, film commune. Well, that's just a loss right there. College production companies. I don't know. And it says go to last page, and I think that's a joke. So that's it. Can we work without studios? Short answer, yes. Everybody and their dad has a camera, and every filmmaker ever, unless they're 11, has one other person minimum they can call that will be like, bro, I'm on my way. Let's go make a movie. Yes. So it can be done. Can it be done at a budget so as to usurp the studios? Specifically, the idea that a filmmaker could do this as their career and they could constantly make enough money to at least be the not breadwinner in their relationship. I want to say yes so bad. My producing partner the other day was like, how many years has film been around? I was like, I don't know, 100 something. He goes, and nobody's figured it out yet? And I was like, no, but the one who does, that's going to be that's going to something of the something. And over the Skype phone call, I could hear him rolling his eye. Over the Zoom call, like with the sound off, I could hear him rolling his eyes. What did we learn today? Studios, work with us. If you don't want to work with the studios, that's cool. There's ways to work outside of the studios. Unfortunately, if you want to have a career that is filmmaking and not be doing DoorDash and Uber Eats for your entire existence, you kind of, even if you start in the indie sphere, or if you start as a shot in the dark, Bo Burnham, Justin Bieber-esque came out of YouTube situation. That's such a bad example. I can't believe I said Justin Bieber. It was on my mind. Feels gross. Unless you're the one hit wonder kind of person who breaks the equation for everybody else and actually has success in some other thing and then transfers that into movie making. And Bo Burnham, to be fair, did over a decade of stand-up comedy as his thing before he even did. I don't know. Can it be done? Yes. Can it be done? Obviously. Obviously not. How's it going to be done? I don't know. God, it's depressing. I don't know. What's the advice here? Keep grinding, keep making movies. God, this is from the point of view of somebody who, by most definitions, has not broken in. So I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing what's obvious sitting in front of me. I really, 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 really hope that's the case, but I'm pretty sure it's just this stuff costs money and costs time and costs effort. And if the studios don't want to play ball, podcasts, it's not movies. Podcasts are not movies. I love podcasts. Big fan of podcasts. Been part of podcasts. Enjoy podcasts. They're not the same as movies. They're not. If I want to go see a play, I'll go see a play. Play is not a movie. If I want to go see a movie, it's a movie. That's it. That's what I got. How do we beat the studios? I don't know. Hold elections? I don't know. I do not know. Like, share, subscribe. Keep making stuff. Fight the good fight. Don't drool on your face because you've been drinking tea. See ya.